we begin tonight with the news that pushed the midterms off the front page, the resignation of Jeff Sessions. All right, Sessions' departure comes less than 2 years after he angered Trump by recusing himself from the Russia probe. The president has repeatedly expressed his frustration over that original decision to recuse. Now, stepping in as acting attorney general is Matt Whitaker. He's a former U.S. attorney from Iowa who is serving now, or was, as Sessions' chief of staff. Now, Trump is said to have a very strong personal rapport with Whitaker, who, at least for now, will oversee the Mueller probe and the rest of the DOJ business, which includes, by the way, DOJ's other federal investigations, including those New York prosecutors were looking into the finances of the president and his former aides. Now, for what this AG resignation could mean, we're joined now by former U.S. Attorney Joe diGenova, who's not in the studio. So sad are we. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy, and George Terwilliger, former DOJ Deputy Attorney General, who actually became an acting AG himself. Now, Joe, let's start with you. Democrats are already calling for Whitaker to recuse himself because of his past statements on another network. He was a contributor, and he made some comments about the Mueller probe in writing. We'll get to some of them in a moment, but your reaction?
Well, those previous comments are not recusable comments. Mr. Whitaker is a fine person. He is completely independent. He knows about the administration of this particular case. I am delighted that supervision of this case has been taken away from Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein in light of his conduct, and I think that Mr. Whitaker will handle this fine. The Democrats are doing what they always do. When they don't have anything else, they just start screaming and yelling. This is an embarrassment to them, but it's going to continue, and Mr. Whitaker is going to be just fine.
George, I want to go to you since you were acting AG, and I remember now. I had forgotten. All right, so Schumer today said the following, George. He said, given his previous comments advocating defunding and imposing limitations on the Mueller investigation, Mr. Whitaker should recuse himself from its oversight for the duration of his time as acting attorney general. And just so people know what we're talking about, I want to play this soundbite from Mark Whitaker. Now, this, George, was from CNN, and it was back in July of 2017. Let's take a watch.
Well, I can see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
Different life. He was working for a network.
Sure.
Grounds for recusal.
No. I mean, two quick points, Laura. One, if every time a lawyer made comments about some matter of public interest and then later got involved and would have to recuse himself, poor Joe, for example, wouldn't be able to practice law. But secondly, your point is well taken. The fact of the matter is that this was a different time, a different set of facts, and I'm sure Matt will make his decisions in this case based on whatever circumstances he becomes aware of.
And just for our viewers' edification here, as acting attorney general, you have all the powers of the attorney general, correct? You just simply haven't gone through Senate confirmation, and it's thought to be temporary. Could it be indefinite?
Well, there's under the Vacancies Act, there'll be some limitations of time, and Matt can't be nominated to succeed to his own position while he's in the position. And there are a couple of exceptions, such as he can't sign FISAs.
Oh, okay. Now, this is getting very interesting. All right, we got to go to Andy here. John Brennan, your favorite, Andy, was out today, and Joe's favorite, was out today, of course, banging the same recusal drum that George was just referencing. Let's watch Brennan and company.
Matt Whitaker comes with a lot of baggage, and it's going to be quite evident, I think, whether or not he is going to fulfill his responsibilities now in that position.
Are you saying that Mr. Whitaker, with his public statements, public writings, and his comments on television, should be recused from overseeing the Mueller probe based on those statements?
I would think that there is a very strong case that, given his public acknowledgement of his prejudiced view on this issue, that he should recuse himself.
Andy, more recusal talk. It's what they pushed Sessions into doing. And I know there's a debate about that. I still say Sessions didn't have to recuse himself, but he rushed to recuse himself. A lot of pressure put on him, and he wilted under it, in my view. But is there really legitimate grounds here for a former commentator to have to recuse here?
No, Laura. I looked very carefully at what he said when he was at CNN. I'll actually have a column up about this at National Review tomorrow. He didn't say anything that was in the nature of recusable commentary. He didn't make any prejudgments about the investigation. He didn't say anything to denigrate what Mueller is up to. And what I find fascinating, and I'm not casting aspersions, I want to be clear, on Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's ethics. But I haven't heard any of these guys complaining that Rosenstein is overseeing this investigation, notwithstanding that Mueller is investigating, supposedly, Trump for obstructing the investigation by firing Comey, a transaction in which Rosenstein is a key player. So if there's anybody in this equation that has a screaming conflict of interest, it's Rod Rosenstein, and I haven't heard these guys say a word about that.
All right, Joe, I have to ask you on picks for Attorney General. We all have maybe a couple ideas. What are your ideas?
Well, I have a couple of ideas which I've shared with the president, and I'm not going to share them with anybody else. Okay. So if I say any of my ideas, I will be sharing a conversation with the president.
I got it. Can you give us a vowel? And, you know, can we do a Wheel of Fortune? I mean, my gosh, this is so frustrating. Now everybody's going to want, okay, yeah, forget it.
There are plenty of great people. There are plenty of great people.
That's such an uncharacteristically vague answer from Joe diGenova. He's always going right in for the day. All right, Terwilliger. Couple ideas. Come on, just throw it out. This is a fun conversation. We don't know who.
I agree with Joe. There's lots of great people out there.
Am I the only one who's going to give the president any advice here on who should be? Okay, Andy, do you have any other than Andy and Joe and George? Andy, Joe, George, Attorney General. Actually, Andy, would you take it if he asked you? Would you do
it? Laura, I don't need to be on the signature line. I'm content to not be in the caption under where it says U.S. versus. That's where I'm trying to stay at this point. And look, George Terwilliger and Joe diGenova have been at the top of every single list of this question every single time I've ever been asked it. And boy, could the president ever do a lot worse.
Yeah, so we got Terwilliger on the list. I was just trying to hint around this, Andy. You gave it away. All right, so you got Joe on the list. You got Terwilliger on the list. Yes, you are. All right, I'm going to make a suggestion. And just to throw it out there, you can all criticize or attack. It's fine. I'm going to make a suggestion of Chris Christie. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I think there are a number of reasons why Christie would be good. And we might have them out of order if we have a graphic. But number one, he has about an 18-year personal relationship with the president. They get along. They know each other. He has already walked through the media fire. He knows what it's like to be in the bright white spotlight of the New York media and, frankly, the national media. I think temperamentally, he and Trump are similar. I mean, they get along as people. They have kind of a similar style. I don't think that's a detriment in this job whatsoever. He was known as the tough-as-nails prosecutor, very well respected by career prosecutors at DOJ. I think, you know, the Bridgegate, I don't think any of that matters. I think with the number of Republicans we have now in the Senate, Christie would get confirmed. If the president said, this is the guy I want, I think Chris Christie would get confirmed. I don't think it would be much of a problem. And I don't think the beach photo, the beach closures, is going to knock him out of it, okay? That's my view. All right. Come on, Joe. Give me some thoughts on that. Christie.
Chris Christie would be fine. He's experienced. He's smart. He's intelligent. He would have the full confidence of the President of the United States, which is, to me, what was missing from the relationship with Jeff Sessions. The President is entitled to have a full-time Attorney General, and Christie could fulfill that role very nicely.
Andy McCarthy, what about Christie?
Now, I've had my policy disagreements with him, but no one can question his credentials. I'd be worried that the Bridgegate thing would be more of a problem than I think you're calculating, because I think they'd try to relitigate that whole thing.
But Republicans
look,
in Senate aren't going to relitigate it. If the president said, look, he's my guy, I know him, he's not going to wilt under pressure, he's not going to go, recusal, recusal, recusal. He's not going to do that. Plus, he has actually a good relationship with Mueller, right? I mean, not a good relationship. He respects Mueller. He's not been on TV saying it's a witch hunt, which I think would be a problem for him becoming Attorney General. He's been quite, I think, dispassionate in his overall analysis, Andy.
Yeah, no, look, all that's true. I just think, I probably think it would be more of a problem than you do in terms of the way it would play out at a confirmation hearing, but I do think he'd be confirmed, and I think he'd do a good job.
George,
and by the way, his lawyer in Bridgegate was Christopher Wray.
Okay, the tentacles all around us. All right, George, before we let you go, what do the Republicans have in store in the House of Representatives with a subpoena power? All these very anxious Democrats have been out of power for a while. Tax returns, emoluments clause, business dealings, they're itching for it.
It has the promise of getting really ugly. And I think the White House is going, and the administration in general, are going to have to make some very hard decisions about what things to fight, when to fight, and how to fight. But they're going to have to fight.
Well, and again, Christie's a fighter. I mean, anyone who's seen his old press conferences from New Jersey, some among the most entertaining, but he does it, he's really smart.
That's true. And he's also, I mean, I think it's really important that somebody at the top of the Justice Department, particularly with these issues, actually be a real prosecutor, you know, and have,
who knows how to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, who knows what it's all about. And I think that was a deficit, was it not, Joe, for Jeff Sessions. And Jeff Sessions, I think, is a very nice person. He's phenomenal on so many of the issues that Trump cares about, and was great. I love what he's doing on the marijuana thing. I'm with him on that. But he knows temperament versus real nuts and bolts experience in that regard. I think it's hard.
Well, and he had another problem, and that is that the president insists on people who have command presence. That is certainly something which Christie would bring to the job. And with Robert Mueller spending more than $38 million to produce absolutely nothing by way of Russian collusion, Christie would be the perfect overseer of that monstrosity.
And before we let you go, Andy, does the Mueller investigation, how do you see it developing at this point with the change of Sessions?
Oh, I think it's probably pretty ripe. I think Mueller's toward the end of what he's doing anyway. But I love that you want a wartime consigliere.
You bet. I go for the Italians, okay? This is the Italian mindset. To shut up. I mean, we like the Irish too.
Joe, did I pronounce that right, Joe?
Yeah. Yes, you did.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Have you never watched
way,
Godfather? My God, have you never watched Godfather 1 and 2, the best movies ever made? All right, guys, fantastic. Thank you so much for your insight. And George, it's great to have you. Will you come back? You're fantastic.
I'd love to.
I mean, you're much better than Joe and Andy. Oh, I'm just kidding. All right, for more on why Trump won and how the GOP could do it again, remember, get my copy of my new paperback. You're going to love it. Busting the Barricades. What I saw at the populist revolt in bookstores everywhere, and come